Where in the book of Revelation does the rapture take place? The rapture is indirectly described in Revelation 13:7, which speaks of, quote, the Antichrist making war against the saints, unquote, which means the Christians, or the Christian countries, the countries predominantly Christian. This passage doesn't say anything about saved souls being taken to heaven, but it does speak of, quote, the sudden destruction which occurs at the rapture. So the rapture is indirectly indicated. When I say it speaks directly of the sudden destruction, I mean it speaks of the Antichrist, quote, making war. And so the sudden destruction that comes with war is implicitly indicated. This will be the very same sudden destruction that shows up at the beginning of chapter 5 of Thessalonians, 1 Thessalonians, which is right next to the rapture at the very end of chapter 4. So the sudden destruction and the rapture are side by side. The logic works like this. The Antichrist launches nuclear war, which means sudden destruction, which explains why people are leaving the world. They're going to heaven because they're being killed by, quote, the sudden destruction, unquote. And this would be on, quote, the day of the Lord, unquote, in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 2. I'm interpreting this term, day of the Lord, in the way it was interpreted in the Old Testament. In other words, the day of the Lord's judgment, not the day of Christ's appearing. In the Old Testament, the day of the Lord always meant the day in which war would serve as God's judgment against a particular nation. For example, in Isaiah 13, we read, the day of the Lord for Babylon is coming. Babylon, this was a prophecy that the Medes would make war against Babylon. Look up Isaiah 13, verse 1, verse 6, and verse 17. So the day of the Lord on the rapture, in the rapture passage of 1 Thessalonians chapter 4 and chapter 5, this means the rapture will occur on a day of war. War, war, war. America will be the victim nation, while Russia, of course, will be the aggressor nation. It will be, quote, the day of the Lord for the USA, or I should say, the day of the Lord's judgment for the USA. To clarify, let me repeat that the day of war in Revelation 13:7 equals the day of war in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 2, as implied in the term day of the Lord. which is shorthand for the day of the Lord's judgment. This day of the Lord's judgment will be the day of sudden destruction, which would equal the day of the rapture. Now, why is that? Well, the destruction would explain why people are departing. They're being killed. The destruction would explain why they are departing the world. At that point, the saved souls will be greeted by, quote, the dead in Christ, who will have become angelic by now. That's from Luke 20, verse 36. When I say the dead in Christ, I'm talking about Christians that have been dead for hundreds of years already. And so they will be coming to do the work of the angels, the gathering angels. Gathering angels are mentioned as at the rapture, as coming at the rapture. This is Matthew 24, verse 30 and 31. They gather the souls of the living Christians that get killed at the time of the rapture. They are called the elect, which simply is a term for the church. Why can't the war in Revelation 13:7 simply be a war against the tribulation saints, the 144,000 saved Jews, rather than a war against the nations that are predominantly Christian, especially the United States? Well, we read that winning this war will give the Antichrist, quote, power over every nation. That's 13:7. In other words, the whole world. A victory over 144,000 tribulation saints in Israel would not give the Antichrist this, quote, power over every nation. Whereas, if the Antichrist makes nuclear war against America and destroys all the big cities of America, that would enable the Antichrist to gain power over the whole world. Well, he'll also be conquering Europe. I'm assuming that Russia hits us, but then we don't get to hit back. So it will be a one-sided war, just like Revelation 13, verse 3 and 4 specifies. Both America and Russia, in a nuclear war, both sides are supposed to receive a deadly wound. In other words, mutual assured destruction. This is according to the doctrine of MAD, mutual assured destruction. But it won't be mutual because Russia will not receive a deadly wound. This is because Russia will prevent the USA from retaliating effectively. This is because back in March of 2020, Russia hacked into our military computers. This means the connection between our computers and the missiles, the connection will be destroyed. One more point. Only Christians that die at the rapture are going up at the rapture. The Christians that survive Russian attack will not be going up. So it will be a much smaller rapture in terms of the number of saved souls that are being taken to heaven. Much smaller than people think. Much smaller than preachers teach. Only 200 million out of a total of 2 billion Christians around the world. That's only 10%. Even though Paul the Apostle says we will not all sleep, this does not mean that we will not die at the rapture. You see, sleep can mean, besides the act of dying, sleep can refer to the state of being dead. Now, we won't leave corpses in the state of being dead because the nuclear fireballs will vaporize the corpses. So the state of being dead will be, it won't be there. Why won't these corpses, why won't we leave corpses? Because the heat of the fireballs will vaporize the corpses in an instant, in the twinkling of an eye, just like Paul says, 1 Corinthians 15, 51 through 52. Last but not least, Russia will rule Western Europe for only 5 months. Look up Revelation 9, verse 5 and 10. Why such a short trib? Because Christ promised to shorten the trib. Matthew 24, verse 22. I will write a transcript summarizing this video in the description box. Please make a paper copy for this, so that when EMP occurs, you'll be able to have the information.